Hi. So my talk today is about sums and my schooling and how it all adds up. This isn't actually my school, Moore's School. It's just a photograph I found to put the quote on. Never let your schooling interfere with your education. Does anyone know who said that? Anyone? No one knows. Okay, that's great, because actually I didn't know either. I always thought it was my maths teacher, who I'll just call Mr. D, for reasons that you'll very soon find out. I didn't really get much of a chance to let my schooling interfere with my education because my schooling was really very haphazard. There's a list of all the schools that I went to, and Mr. D appeared halfway through, or just above halfway through, at the International School of Lusaka. He was my maths teacher when I was 9. I've never really understood why people get so obsessed by numbers and statistics, but I went to 6 schools and 3 schools twice, and I had 11 moves. But one of the things that I also know from moving schools is I kind of observed how maths was taught very, very differently wherever I went. My most favourite part, though, was at the very beginning, when we learnt how to count using really beautiful things like butterflies or cakes or apples. And then it gets really, really dreary, and we start getting those things at the bottom, the numbers. The thing I liked the least, though, was mental arithmetic. It's not that I wasn't any good at it. Actually, I was very good at mental arithmetic. There's no need to be modest, is there? But I hated it. And the reason why I hated it was there was a little boy called George. Well, he wasn't really little. He was short and he was fat like a ball. And Mr. D used to fire these questions at poor little George, and George wouldn't bounce the answers back quite fast enough. So Mr. D would go to the blackboard and get the massive blackboard ruler, bring it over to George, and hit him on the head. And he used to call it mental arithmetic with the Board of Education. The other thing that we learned from Mr. Dunphy was about Venn diagrams, about how you can put 2 bits of disparate data together and then just look at where maybe the connections are. I learned lots of other things from him as well. For years and years and years, I've wondered why no one, including myself, stood up to Mr. D. And I fantasized about what I might say if I ever met him again. You see, the thing about George is that George wasn't very good at maths, but George was a genius when it came to languages. English was his 3rd language. His parents had named him Yorgos. And I imagine that if I ever saw Mr. Dunphy, I would say to him, maybe, Mr. Dunphy, George's thick Greek ears just didn't understand your English fired at him in your thick Irish accent. But I've never got to say that to Mr. Dunphy. The other thing that I really love about Venn diagrams, and I have to put this down for a second, is that when you take those 2 things I mentioned earlier on, you can bring them together and really find that point in the middle where there's common ground. That's a heart shape if anyone can't see it. And one of the other areas where we can bring these things together is government and grassroots. So government, on the one hand, we have people like Mr. Gov saying, let's bring back things to schools like formal learning, grammar, and spelling. And on the other side, we have grassroots. For example, a very dear friend and colleague of mine teaches kindness in schools and wants to bring it back to the school curricula. And I think that Christine, Claire, and Nicole were both talking about qualities beyond facts. So very last at all, the internet and Facebook. I would sum it all up when we look at what's important in education. Is it facts or is it kindness? To the words of the great Greek philosopher Aristotle, who said that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Thank you.